gathering and each gathering since, we'd like to begin this time and every time by acknowledging that the land threatened by these pipelines has been stolen once before from the indigenous peoples of those areas, that it is indigenous land that we stand on here today, and that it is indigenous peoples who started and lead the pipelines resistant movement. Today, on the anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, we also honor his memory, his tremendous impact on society, and his fight for racial and social justice. We ask for a moment of silence to recognize him and all of those that have died fighting injustice. We are here to remind Governor Northam of his absolute responsibility to protect all residents of Virginia, their safety and their health within the context of racial, social, economic, and environmental justice. The pipeline's paths disproportionately travel through communities of color, indigenous communities, and low-income communities. In Virginia, the Union Hill community, who has been named one of Virginia's most endangered historic places by Preservation Virginia, has been proposed to be the site of a 53,000 horsepower compressor station. ACP LLC would sacrifice the health, property rights, and futures of a historic community of color. We gather in solidarity today with all of the communities along the paths, the communities affected, forgotten by our governor, and share our appreciation to all those who work for justice. So we were going to transition into chants. I don't know that the governor is here today because I think he's in Lynch.
Oh, no.
Okay. And so the first one, that's true. Environmental justice now. Environmental justice now! 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 Once more. Environmental justice now! To Northam, can you stop these pipelines? Yes, you can. Can you stop these pipelines? Yes, you can. Can you stop these pipelines? Yes, you can. Can you stop these pipelines?
Yes, you can.
Can you stop these pipelines?
Yes, you can.
Can you stop these pipelines?
Yes, you can.
Can you stop these pipelines?
Yes, you can.
Can you stop these pipelines?
Yes, you can.
Once more. Can you stop these pipelines?
Yes, you can.
Water is life.
Water is life. Water is life. Water is life. Water is life. Water is life. Water is life. Water is life. Water is life. Water is life. Water is life.
Once more.
Water is life.
Good job. Northam, come off it. Don't sell our state for profit. Northam, come off it. Don't sell our state for profit. Northam, come off it. Don't sell our state for profit. Northam, come off it. Don't sell our state for profit. Northam, come off it. Don't sell our state for profit. Once more. Northam, come off it. Don't sell our state for profit.
Northam,
Come off it. Don't sell our state for profit.
Pam, your man's a sham. You need to have
We could do a round of People Gonna Rise Like the Waters, if y'all would like to try a little singing.
We have observers over there.
The children.
I think that song would be...
Yeah, so we should do something.
Clean water is a legacy for our children.
Sure.
Clean water is a legacy for our children!
Clean water is a legacy for our children.
Clean water is a legacy for our children! Clean water is a legacy for our children! Once more. Clean water is a legacy for our children!
Good job.
So at this time, Stacy is going to read the letter we have addressed to Governor Northam.
So here's our letter to Governor Northam. On this solemn day, the 50th anniversary of the assassination of the Venerable Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., we remind you of the racial and social injustices involved with the Atlantic Coast and Mountain Valley pipelines, the same type of injustices that Dr. King died fighting. Both pipelines will predominantly impact low-income African American and indigenous communities. This is a result of the racial and economic targeting practiced by pipeline companies, a form of 21st century colonialism that is part of the systemic oppression rampant in our country.
Yes.
As you remain silent, these communities are forced to shoulder the majority of the pipeline's toxicity. You are complicit in these appalling practices. Dr. King said, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy." We invite you to reflect on what your measure is in light of your money-driven support of immoral pipeline companies. Is it what you expected of yourself, or even what you promised to the people that you are sworn to protect? Here's where we usually give a list of asks to you, but this time we're not asking. We're telling you what you must do if you are to stop failing us, stop breaking your physician's oath to do no harm, and start upholding your responsibility as the elected governor of Virginia and upholding justice itself. Immediately halt any pre-construction or construction activities for both pipelines. Reinstate the State Water Control Board's ability to have input on the certification process, and reinstate the public's ability to give input as well. Rescind the memorandums of agreement that Governor McAuliffe signed with ACP LLC and EQT that effectively sold our state for $58 million to ACP and $27.5 million to MVP. Stand by your words in a letter from last year where you called for the DEQ to use site-specific permitting for water bodies crossed by the pipelines, and match your opposition to offshore drilling to another example of ruinous fossil fuels projects, the frac natural gas Mountain Valley and Atlantic Coast pipelines. Sever your relationship with ACP applicant Dominion Energy. Dr. King also said the time is always right to do what is right. You know what you ultimately have to do. Stop the pipelines.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Stop the pipeline!
Woo! Good job, bud. Yeah.
So we're going to open it up if anyone would like to say a few words or share what they're feeling or thinking.
Does anybody?
I'll just add something. All those, both of those letters speak my mind. But I would remind us all that movements, especially social justice movements, often start small, often start with the people most affected and then those allies of the most effective. But as we've seen, they grow, and they grow to the point where they cause great change and shifts in cultures, and that is what we're looking for.
I can't do anything better.
I've always been kind of partial to clean water. It's hard to do anything else without it. So it really is a very essential issue that we're grappling with here. It's kind of very foundational, in fact. So let's just stop this madness and get out with us. Come out and join us. This is just so important. We just can't do anything without clean water, fresh water. And we'll be very sorry when we don't have that anymore.
Everybody who has spoken speaks my mind too. It's been over 3 years that our brothers and sisters in the path of these pipelines have been living with this threat. And now the companies are descending upon them with their armies of tree cutters. And soon they'll be descending with the blasters and the big equipment. So I just want to send love and support out to the tree sitters and to all of the pipeline fighters and resistors in the path of these dreadful, dirty fracked gas pipelines.
I want to echo what y'all are saying and thank everybody that has put so much of themselves into fighting this, and that, like Suzanne was saying, we stand in solidarity with the communities along the paths, those that are tree sitting, those that are fighting this, and encourage everybody to donate to those groups that are supporting tree sitters. I also just want to mention that or acknowledge what we all heard this week, that Northam has reappointed David Paler as the head of the DEQ, which is really a step in the very wrong direction. So I hope that that is reversed. I have the letter that, and we also, usually reach out to the Attorney General, who has been pretty silent on this issue. So we again return to ask him for what he should be doing for Virginia, protecting Virginia. Our letter today says, "We return to remind you of your legal responsibility to protect the rights of Virginia residents and to protect our Commonwealth's environmental health. On the anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, we also ask you to consider the environmental injustice and racism involved with the pipeline projects. As our Attorney General, the rights of Virginians fall under your purview. The ACP and MVP are slated to travel disproportionately through indigenous communities, communities of color, and low-income communities. And as I mentioned before, it is highlighted with the proposed 53,000 horsepower compressor station slated for the historic Union Hill community of Buckingham. The legacy of Virginia's environmental injustice continues. Use your legal authority to intervene now. Virginians were denied a fair, transparent review process for the MVP and ACP. Our DEQ, again now helmed by David Paler, allowed pipeline applicants to meet for 2 years to facilitate approval of the projects. The public's ability to provide input was rushed, flawed, and condensed into a few number of months. Now, only weeks into the tree felling, ACP has received 15 separate notices of violation. It is indicative of what would come if the construction continues. As the ACP and MVP would introduce over 1,000 miles of sediment dumps and herbicides into waters, miles of mountaintop removal, abuse of eminent domain, loss of tourism revenue, and pollution-emitting compressor stations into our Commonwealth, we ask that you, using your legal authority, do the following. 1. Prepare to challenge any additional felling requests by ACP, LLC, or EQT. 2. Declare that the DEQ did not provide reasonable assurance that waterways would not be impacted, and send the certifications back for reconsideration. This is under your legal authority. 3. Instruct the DEQ to reinstate the State Water Control Board's ability to have input on the certification process for both pipelines. 4. And as recently revealed as how different the MOUs with North Carolina were and how terrible the ones are with Virginia that McAuliffe signed, challenge the legality of those memorandums of understanding that Governor McAuliffe signed with ACP, LLC, and EQT that released them from monetary liability above the amounts listed, $58 million for the ACP and $27.5 million for the MVP. These agreements were made without any public notice. They did not provide any funding for the localities along the paths. We want you to publicly acknowledge that the routes of the MVP and ACP disproportionately affect communities of color, indigenous communities, and low-income communities. We ask Attorney General Herring to act in the best interest of our health and safety now. So, I was hoping we could all gather in song for People Gonna Rise Like the Waters, and we will then, after that, deliver the letters to Governor Northam. Everyone is invited to do that, and then to the Attorney General's mail drop. And then we hope everyone is able to join over at the bell tower for the next event. So, people gonna rise like the waters, gonna shut these pipelines down. I hear the voices of my great-granddaughters singing climate justice now. People gonna rise like the waters, gonna shut these pipelines down. I hear the voices of my great-granddaughters saying climate justice now. People gonna rise like the waters, gonna shut these pipelines down. I hear the voices of my great-granddaughters singing climate justice now. People gonna rise like the waters, gonna shut these pipelines down. I hear the voices of my great-granddaughters singing climate justice now. Once more. People gonna rise like the waters, gonna shut these pipelines down. I hear the voices of my great-granddaughters saying climate justice now. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
So whomever wants to deliver some letters, we're going to do that, and then we will all head to the bell tower.
Luther King, but there's been a lot of heartbreaking things happening recently that favor the pipeline companies instead of us. But so I wanted to conclude with a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King: "We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope." And so the governor may not be listening right now. The DEQ, remains under corrupt leadership, and the pipeline companies may win battles here and there, but it's no matter at all because our fire will outlast theirs. Yes. And there's no question about it. The pipeline companies and their violence may be sponsored by the state, but we're sponsored by our Mother Earth, and we will win.